RPG a Day 2021, Day 14. Before we really begin, all the entries for RPG a Day 2021, or any year, are meant to be positive and in the vein of celebrating all aspects of the hobby, from the varied perspectives around the world and across generations of gamers. People struggle with that every year, and as one of the organizers, that can be a challenge for me. The place I have found to stand to gain perspective on this phenomenon of negative positivity is that, if nothing else, it is a sign of the deep passion that people form as a result of the hobby. It's their deep connection to the hobby. Now, some of these people might not be able to let the main prompt for today, safety, go without offering some subtle or not so subtle critique. They might not be able to celebrate the safety and comfort that gaming has always meant for them, because they're being painted these days with a very broad brush that suggests that they have actively and intentionally made it unsafe for others. People do not tend to react well when accused, rightly or wrongly, directly or indirectly. And people tend to get emotional when something they love comes under fire for a slight that they think is unjustified, rightly or wrongly, directly or indirectly. And people, being people, are prone to acting like people. They're prone to human behavior. People get angry, people vent, and people cannot help but snipe at problems or shortcomings and so on, but mostly they do it because they care. Their passion, their investment, and their desire to be heard all feed the emotional momentum which pushes them past the limits set up to define something like RPG a Day, and at times can push them beyond the point of it being fun for them to participate or fun for anyone else to get involved with their participation. I've been where they are, honestly. I can have empathy for what happens when a prompt hits you in a tender spot. These days, looking back, I can also hope that they find a way out of such places and onward to a place of greater satisfaction, and I mean this word specifically, greater safety within the state of their own personal gaming. So they don't feel attacked, they don't feel threatened, and they don't feel like they need to protect something which is being unfairly attacked. But, as some famous YouTuber might say, this entry isn't about that. Or is it? Of the 4 prompts for today, Saturday, August 14th, 2021, the 14th day of RPG a Day, I have arrived at a strong feeling that I would enjoy looking at the prompt limits. So, with no further delay, let's get into it. Saturday limits. In the wonderful group that I get to play with on Saturdays, it truly is a wonder that we get to play at all. In fact, we'd not be able to game together were it not for their willingness to fight steadfastly against one of our biggest limits, time. Time made more obstinate and difficult by my variable schedule. With me living in Korea, and the other players clustered around the Atlantic time zone, we have a solid time difference never less than 12 hours. To overcome this very real limit on our playtime, and even on the possibility of arranging play, the players agreed to start the game at their 6:30 a.m., sometimes earlier. I play or run the game between shifts on Saturday evening, and they get up at or before dawn. You got to admit, it would be very easy to say no to a setup like that. When you think about it, the short play time, the early start time for them, and the constrained juggling of time for me, all of it seems like too small a box to try to fit some RPG fun in. Yet, it is some of the most fun and most natural gaming I'm involved with. And that's saying something. One reason for this is that we got together as a group in accordance with the teachings of the Holy Trinity of roleplay. But that's nothing new for us. What does stand out to me is that because of the finite limit of session time, because of the sacrifice of arranging this schedule and sticking to it, and because we gel so well as a group, this tiny allotment of time feels practically precious. It's not something to risk or waste or treat just like any other day. Most of the credit for this goes to the character of the participants. But a definite factor is how this opportunity to play is defined by its limitations. In this group, we have limits on when and for how long we play, but in other regards, the experience is wide open. This group experiments with new games. It offers introductions and explorations of games that some of us know and some of us don't. This group talks theory. It then puts theory into practice, and it is honest with its feedback. This is a group of like-minded individuals with vast and growing game libraries and a curious amount of dice. This is a group with a lot of laughter and a lot of support. Sunday limits. In the wonderful group I get to play with on Sundays, it's less of a wonder that we get to play, because we are only managing 2 neighboring time zones, and most of us have similar schedules. Most of us have known one another personally, both professionally and socially, for many years. The ridiculous quirks of work here, plus the various challenges and tragedies of life with kids and life with dogs and vast separations from relatives, these are taken with empathy and understanding. Most of us have been the one who's had to cancel, show up late, or shift the time at the last minute. Yet, despite all the juggling and all the interruptions of play, the group and the games continue. We've explored that galaxy far, far away. We've conducted operations for Slay Industries in the rain-soaked megacity of Mort. And we have taken 2 voyages aboard Federation starships. Our campaigns are long, involved, and full of rich characterizations. We have a lot of stability in what we play and in what we want to play together. We have a lot of flexibility in when we play and for how long. In terms of limits, this is not the group that wants to play every new game that comes across my desk, and it baffles most of them when I get more dice. But that does not mean in any sense that the games played and how they are played are limited in any fashion. Once a pitch grabs the group, we're in for the long term, and in for who the characters are and what they want to do. When you look at it in terms of limits, the Saturday and Sunday groups seem to almost be arranged under opposite constraints. One group's members have never met in the same physical space, except for 2. The other group met in real life before we started gaming together, except for 1. One group regularly shifts games and has a roster of pending ones. The other group keeps playing one game until it is time to stop, maybe years later. One group has to balance its time on a razor's edge. The other can deftly navigate scheduling problems. One group is full of GMs who are torn between running characters and running games. The other group has me as a dedicated GM but has its volunteers ready to give me a taste of the games we play together, if needed. As a study in important and unimportant opposites, these groups are fascinating to me, but the most important aspect of both is how much I enjoy spending time with all of the people involved, how much I appreciate and am inspired by their play, and how much I look forward to the next session each and every time, despite the limits that have been placed upon us. It is said that limits breed creativity, and likewise that necessity breeds invention. I think these groups would still be special without all the limits placed upon them. But when I consider my involvement with each group, I can see that the limits encourage and press me to be better. And that makes them worth it too. If you'd like to read this entry instead of listen to it, it's available at castingshadowsblog.com. It will mostly be the same, but it'll have some differences. And one of the differences is that at the bottom of the entry, there will be an embedded video. So you won't have to go searching in the description box of this podcast to look for the link. Today's video example of our actual play comes from the impromptu Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars playlist on my YouTube channel. And it focuses on a particular session which was completely defined by limits. It was decided we could play, and then within 30 minutes we were playing. Characters had been created, scenario or situation had been generated, a crawl had been created, and so on. But it was one-to-one play, just one character and one GM. The whole session was entirely about limits. The link I have provided in the show notes of this podcast and embedded in the blog post at castingshadowsblog.com is of the annotated and abridged version. This will highlight all of these limitations that I have just enumerated. If you'd like to see the unabridged version, that link is available in the description box on the YouTube video and in the playlist Impromptu Star Wars. Okay. This brings us to the end of our entry for day 14. You've been listening to the Casting Shadows podcast, which is an extension of the Casting Shadows blog and Casting Shadows on YouTube. The blog can be found at castingshadowsblog.com, and on YouTube we're found under the name of Runeslinger. This month of August 2021 is the 8th anniversary of starting RPG A Day. RPG A Day is an exercise in positivity, talking about one idea about RPGs positively every day for each of the days of August. If you stumble across an RPG A Day post that you like, or if you've written one that you like, please share it. Hashtag it RPG A Day 2021. Follow the hashtag and read other people's comments on the same set of prompts. If you like what they're doing, let them know. If you really like what they're doing, share it. Keep in mind always that this is about talking positively about the hobby. We can talk trash anytime. Take care.